Okay, so I finally set up the board and the time. I think I cheated, and I think I'm going to keep cheating. Let me explain. Well, I'll get to it as I go. I want him in the plains. Where do I want William? Put William over here, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, all right. This looks nice. The lines close to each other. Now, in this battle, first of all, I should go over the historical, just a little bit of what we're doing. We're looking at the War of the League of Augsburg, Neerwinden, and the French in Flanders, Duke of Luxembourg, stripped town garrisons, built up his force to face King William. Do I have Luxembourg in the lead? I ought to. Yes. Yes. And is moving to try to attack Huy. I don't know where the hell that is, but I assume it's in the Netherlands. Well, I assume it's in the Spanish Netherlands, to be honest. Flanders. Okay. They managed to capture it before William got there. William falls back to screen Liege. And Luxembourg decides to move in for an open battle. William takes a fortified position, and he actually digs in along here. I don't know if this is... I'm trying to remember. No, that's Blenheim I'm thinking of. Okay. Okay. The French have about a 3-2 advantage in numbers, but the Allies have a strong position that they built up. And I guess a contemporary map with some indications of how the board kind of applies to it. Okay. And the battle is going to start at 7:21 a.m. 7th hour, 20th minute, first phase. I assume there's a PM here. Yes. And if it's not over by the end of the basically if it's not done by 5 p.m., the game ends in an Allied victory. The victory happens when one player routs all the enemy units in any one of the following wings. Neerwinden, which will be this one here. The plain, which is the center, or Rumsdorp, which is the central right one. So the absolute flanks don't count. Of course, if you roll up a flank, you're probably going to cause a lot of problems. You can also achieve victory by routing both flanks. And finally, one victory is achieved if one side concedes to the other. Historically, they say William conceded the field. I think that's essentially a concession. He was not routed from the field, but he did withdraw. Okay, both sides set up their command display and map simultaneously. I'm afraid I kind of set the French up afterwards. I think that's okay. I don't really think it has much impact. The instructions below indicate specific wing and line to which a brigade starts. These are all well-defined over in here. Sometimes it's a little tricky to deal with what is really a different way of expressing where the forces are and everything. It's not what I'm used to, but with a little bit of puzzling, it is possible to figure out where things should be assigned on here, and then you're simply following the regular rules to deploy them. But French army is very large and crowded onto the field. Yeah, no shit. I had a hard time. They almost take every box in the game. And some of them are restricted, and it's kind of painful. The Allied army, on the other hand, I got lots of room there. Okay. The forwardmost line that any Allied units may start is indicated by the purple dashed line. The Allies have the north of the map and the French the south for retreats and whatnot. And then they give an example. This does not look legitimate. There are not enough counters on it, to be honest. Right? Oh, I'm too short here. And he's got 4 there. So that would actually open up some space. However, I found myself creating a fairly thick looking line there. Now I've got a lot of artillery and stuff on there as well. Where did I cheat? Okay, from what I understand of the rules, let me point out specifics, and I cheated on both sides, so don't worry about it too much. Let's take a look at this Neerwinden here for is this a good choice? Yeah, Neerwinden's a good choice. The division lines are here and here. And so I've got in the front line here the first guards, okay? And these should be as well. Okay. And indeed, I have the first guards here. Great. Lined up behind them, in line, as far, in a way that seems very reasonable to me, I have these Marichetti or whatever. I can't read. Maastricht. Wow. Well, they looked Spanish to me. Okay. They're in the support line, but if they actually wanted to be in the support line, by the way I read the rules, they would have to be not behind the front line, but behind the hex row of the front line, which is to say, this is the furthest hex row of it. No unit could be in this row. And that would cause some serious problems because here, for example, the French line runs across here. I could have no support units flowing around behind them. That just doesn't feel right. I feel like the lines going back ought to conform to the front lines of the units present. And this looks a lot more linear to me than something where the support lines would have to be forced. In this case, this would be the last unit of that. Nothing could be above this, north of that. That just feels like a bunch of bullshit to me. And so I'm a little worried because if we look at I'm a little worried the rules that seemed very clear when I read them, when I actually start applying them, aren't really working very well. So here we have units, same wing, different lines, up, back. So what's kind of fucked up here is it's not absolutely clear in this particular segment what is front and back. And, if I call this and this front, I think I'm following the spirit of the rule. I don't think the letter of the rules is written in a way that works. But honestly, I'm not sure there is a way to make it work. You're going to have to create some kind of concept. Now, what I thought was the case was that you wouldn't, this is the overlap stuff, that's fine. What I thought was going to be the case, what I thought was the case was that it was actually defined based on the hex, the hex pattern. I am trying to think, the grain of the hexes. in the sense that you have to be facing this way, or, well, you could be facing that way. The grains work the same way in either case. So I think you have to interpret a little bit and try to use some reason here, because from the age of reason, after all, to be able to make sense of these rules. You have to use a little bit of common sense when it comes to it. It's not quite the age of common sense yet. Anyway, I'm not going to actually start today. I doubt I'm going to start tomorrow. It's dancing day. But I wanted to capture, because it's relatively late, I had 40 minutes. I think I spent that setting up in between, like, where I was in raid and where I'm going to be in raid very shortly. So probably Sunday is the first day that I'll actually get back to this, which is okay. I'm going to have to struggle with the rules and whatnot to get a good feel for things. There's no question of that. It's a new system. Combat's simple, though. Okay. Let's take a look at what we've got then in terms of disposition, just to get an idea of what's facing what. And we'll start over here. The Brits have put infantry in the front line everywhere up until here. So I've got different infantry brigades stationed in each of the different wings. Then when we get here, if we take a look, I've got an infantry brigade, a Danish infantry brigade, and then the English cavalry. And so the Danes are here, and there's a Dane under this artillery piece as well. I put the artillery on top to give it a chance to fire. Other units can move to cover the artillery. It's possible the artillery might get sacked. I'm not that worried about it. For whatever reason. After I go through the Danish infantry, then we have the English here. This cav stretches back to here. Okay, I'm allowed to do that. It's not interfering and crossing into the line back from the front. And that's really how I'm working it. Is a line, an imaginary line for the front and a line perpendicular to that is what's going to define what is front and back for me. And the rules definitely don't go into that. But they may be vague enough that they don't make that completely violating the rules the way I thought I had. And then we'll see here, if we look beyond, there's a support line. There's no reserve line. The support line has an infantry over on the far left, English side. We could look at it this way. My right, the army's left, and a Danish cav on the right. And that's going to be distinguished here. These are an infantry brigade here, and then some cav here. And there's not a lot of room in this wing, so it gets really tight. So I didn't put any reserve or anything back there. If we look at some of the others, like I said, I have a couple of infantry in each wing. The center wing here, the plains, which is behind my fortification, has actually 3 infantry brigades there. But then in the support line, I generally have a cav in each support line, and you'll see these. So for example, this one has a bunch of cav here. Again, it's drifting off that way. Not very, not very useful to have stuff there because it would be having to cross the line. But the stream kind of helps define what these wings are. The terrain actually does kind of fit these lines. They're not just arbitrary. They do kind of look like they work where I want them to. Over here, I have a cav brigade and then an infantry brigade to back up that line. The cav brigade, I'm hoping I don't need cav back here and I can shift it somewhere else if needed, but whatever. Then, all still part of this plains section, I have a reserve. Now I'm allowed to have 4 units in each line of a wing, But here, I decided I wanted these guys back in reserve. They have a lot of flexibility in terms of moving. The die rolls are easier and whatnot, and a big cav brigade back there to be able to dispatch wherever I want it. I'm gonna move William over here because he'll actually be more helpful in getting commands to that if it needs to be moved. The next one over is Neerwinden. We had Neerwinden. This is Neerwinden, which is the town itself. And here again, 2 infantry in the front. Got Hanoverians here, and then the guard here. And they're largely holding the town, which is a strong defensive position, right? Although not for artillery. It doesn't have a damn bit of effect on artillery. And then behind them, I have some Spanish cav here and some Dutch infantry here. Now this is actually kind of problematic. Maybe the Spanish cav needs to be up a little bit. Because here's the problem. If we lined these back, these guys would be considered to be no longer in the support line. Now I can fix that by just shifting this back, and maybe that's what I need to do. Probably not going to see a breakthrough there. I'm going to go with this because I like this positioning. If I wanted to see here the problem is the front line. If we wanted to work on the conformance of the front line, it runs here. These guys are running behind that. That's all peachy keen. It comes down here. So that's all peachy keen. These guys are back here, but I feel like no matter what, we're going to have some kind of conflict. So let's say I had an infantry brigade here in that same support line. What would that do? I don't know. I just feel like something's going to get screwed up no matter what by trying to align this, just because of the way that particular wing, if you want to call it that, but sector, whatever, is aligned. I got to swap batteries. I'll come back. I want to talk some more about this because I think that the setup and its alignment between the map and the command display is really an interesting and important part of the game, and that's going to inform a lot of what we're looking into. Kind of funny, I had a water outage. They turned my water off. I don't know for how long. I think I was asleep during it a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I even mentioned it on the video, but where all my faucets and everything made this horrible spurt and some kind of blackish fluid came out very briefly. And they've been doing work on my road for water, and now for some reason CenturyLink has been coming around regularly. I hadn't really thought of it, and I used the restroom up here. The toilet, okay? And when I always flush a little before, a little before I'm done peeing, because the water rushes things down. The choking noise that it made startled me, and I ended up pissing all over the place after jumping. So that was more exciting than it had to be. Okay, where were we? We were at the Neerwinden line. Let's keep going. The last one is Lair. Here again, 2 infantry brigades in the front, a single cavalry brigade in support here, and another cavalry brigade in reserve. Whoa, there's 2 cav here. Hold on. What's going on? What's going on? I have the Spanish. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Something's fucked up. I have this infantry. I have the Spanish. Oh, that's over here. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm getting confused because this looks like it's the center of the board, right? This is the central one. All right. Yeah. So I've got the Spanish back there, which it does not matter at all that this line, which is a reserve line, is in some ways up further than this support line. That doesn't matter because they're in different fronts, whatever. Okay, let's take a look at the French now coming in the other direction. Let's just talk about what I put in the front first. I've got all infantry running across here. They're not great units, okay? But I'm largely looking at, hey, I don't think I can, even though this may be the weakest point in the Allied line, first of all, I wasn't supposed to know that. Secondly, I have some restrictions on these units. If we look at what's up here, these are all left, and there's a lot of left infantry. So a lot of iffier infantry is in place. Anyway, I put a fair number of weaker units running across here with the idea of, yeah, they should be able to hold, and then I've got cav reserves behind them in case things go bad. Over here, a couple more. I'm only allowed 2. A couple more infantry, but these are much, much higher quality. You can see Reynald and Salas, a 9 and a 10 quality. They're right here, okay? And Salas is over here, running between, basically from here. I'm allowed to be on the line with units. This is part of the plains. So a lot of high quality stuff facing Neerwinden itself with the intention of trying to take the town. This is probably moronic. I probably should have switched and put the good stuff here and tried to push through here. Of course, he does have a defensive town here too with Lair itself. So I don't know. But I'm looking at, let's collapse the center. That's the important thing. I got huge numbers. I should be able to do it, right? Okay. Coming across here, now this can hold 4, but I've only got 2 infantry brigades up here because they're the Guards and Surbeck, both of which are large, high-quality units. I mean, look at these morale numbers, 12, 10. Of course, they have a lot of units in them, and they can take a lot of losses. Once they do start taking losses, though, they will start collapsing. Big units that I've seen in this particular game have been showing up with high morale values. It's going to be hard to break a big unit by, you know, whacking a little unit on the line of it. Of course, it could be possible that there's some really low quality big units. Those will be fun to watch if we see any. But this has 10 units and a 12 morale. So, you know, it's got to start losing quite a bit and really get chewed up to be down to the level that this 4-6 is. So this thing has a 6 morale with 4 units. Fresh, it's got a 6 morale. To get this down to a 6 morale, I would have to lose 6 units, and it would be the same size, right? So small units are generally not very good in terms of the quality of the morale. Now, what does that actually mean when we look at the route table? Well, remember, that's with the whole force breaking. Do I have a route table? I don't think I have a route table. I thought I had one. Huh. Yeah, I guess you're just rolling to get under your morale level when you take hits. But what it does mean is even small units, if they take a single hit or whatever, the whole unit can break. The big units, they have to take enough hits to get them below a 9 at least. Plus, leadership might apply, depending. Right now, I don't have any leaders assigned to their units. Okay, we'll continue going on to Rumstorp against 2 infantry brigades here. And this is running, again, I moved all the way up to the front, or I placed all the way up to the front of the line. My artillery, I got a lot of artillery here in the plains. That was forced. I put additional artillery here to bombard Neerwinden. Again, this is where I want my focus, right in the front. Hit them where they're strongest, man. Isn't that the wise idea? Okay. So I got 2 infantry in the front, and then the final wing here in Neerwinden has 2 cavalry brigades running here, the asphalt, and artillery sitting on its own because I can't have them stacked, I think. I may be wrong about that. I may be able to stack them. I think I am. I'll look that up in a moment. And then the Kalis brigade. Let me check that quickly. I'll come back and talk about what's backing the front lines up. Yes, the cav is allowed to be stacked behind the artillery, or with it, in front of it if I wish. Okay, let's take a look again, going in the same direction. What do I have in the lair? I have 2 cav and an infantry to back it up. Where's the infantry? Oh, that's up here. Okay, the 2 cav are up here, and the infantry is here. Again, I have to conform to the direction of the line. That's the only way that the game makes sense to me for the support line. But it doesn't feel like it's explicit about that. And again, I'm not sure how you would do it. And then in the reserve, I have 3 more cav brigades, all clumped way back there. I just want them out of the way. I don't really expect the Brits to break through here and to need these reserves here. So having them, flexible seems like a good idea. At Neerwinden, I have 2 infantry brigades backing things up here. Duplexis is over on this side. That's this one. So I've got St. Lawrence and Surville. And then a cav brigade here, adding to the weight of this whole set here. And then an infantry brigade set in the town in case things go really, really badly. It'll give me a defensive place. You'll see this in Runsdorp as well. In the plains, I have cav, 2 infantry cav running here. So here's the Duplexis cav, 2 infantry brigades, kind of small. But to fill in for those big good units, once they start to get chewed up a little. And then another cav brigade here with Rottenburg. And in the back, I have 4 cav brigades in this huge conglomeration, and I'm doing my best not to cheat, which isn't too hard, right? You just, you don't let things stray out of their columns essentially, because that's what they act like here. So as an example, let's take a look. This is Dalu here in a column. Saint-Simon is here in a column. Nothing's overlapping or getting bad. Where you've got stuff like this, it's on the halfway point. It can drive down and it's fine. Okay. On Rumsdorf, 2 infantry brigades following up here. These are running at Rumsdorf. Wait, what? 2 or 3? I got the Lux and the Zurlauben. Here's the Lux on this side. The Zurlauben is over here. Oh, I see this line. I didn't see it. Yeah, so I've got 2 little brigades here on each side of Rumsdorf. They can, defend it if they need to, whatever. And then backing them up, 2 more infantry brigades down here, the Pompon and the Hautefort. Now, you could say, hey, wait, this guy's behind this line. Yeah, it's fine. There's nothing interfering that shouldn't be behind them. And they've defined a front line that goes like this. They don't even have to be adjacent. What does have to be adjacent, though, is each brigade has to be adjacent to all its own units, or else you start having units trying to rejoin the brigade, unless none of them are adjacent to any others, in which case you have, I think, address ranks, and that's not going to make it easy to put it back together. Okay. So a lot of infantry running in the Rumsdorf Dorp. I want to put an F on there, make it German. Then here finally in the Neerlanden, an infantry followed by a cav over here. The infantry is Cadro here, again at Allenhaven. And then the cav is over here, that's a Nassau. We have Nassau units on both sides, which is a little weird. Nassau, the Prince of Orange was also, and I think it's the Count of Nassau. So I don't know what's going on, why there's Nassau troops on both sides. There might be enough information to give me an idea of that. We got Swiss and foreign troops here. This is all Swiss. No, we don't have any special information on that. I'm a little curious about why there's Nassauers in both. And then I've got a Cav brigade back here. Now, some of these brigades are not actually Cav, they're Dragoon. Let me find a good example. Kalis, for example, is a Dragoon brigade. Where did I put him? I put him in the front. Should he be in the front? I don't know. I could have deployed him as all infantry and had a bunch of infantry up here, which might have been more powerful. I'm going with the... See, here's the thing. When you get to... when you get to Marlborough's period, the British Cav is definitely superior to the French. But I'm still of the opinion that French Cav is very powerful still at this period. I may be wrong, and we're going to see what it can do. And among other things, the Brits have Cav deployed against me here, but they also have an infantry line here. So unless I can get around the flank of that infantry, I am not going to be able to do a hell of a lot to it. And this is a decision you make pre-game. Dragoons, you have a choice. You want infantry for the game or you want Cav for the game. Your call. Which I find a little weird, but okay. Yeah, it feels to me like, make the choice that the historical commanders do, because otherwise I got a bunch of counters on both sides. Now, on the Allied side, their Dragoons are sometimes assigned to Cav brigades and sometimes assigned to infantry brigades. And I gave their mounting status based entirely on that. And the rules seem to support this. They're like, yeah, you know, it's part of a Cav brigade. They'll say, probably mounted. If it's part of an infantry brigade, I don't know if they say probably dismounted. But it just seems clear to me that it would be really hard to operate a unit with sort of combined arms integrated in it. I'm not sure. Like in terms of playing the game, not particularly in terms of the commanders and whatnot. I could see it working perfectly fine on the field. I'm just not sure that you'd be able to move, especially some dismounted Dragoons trying to catch up constantly with a Cav brigade. Of course, there's not a lot of room to maneuver in this game. It is linear warfare after all. But on the French side, there are Dragoon brigades. There are 2 Dragoon brigades. And yeah, which way you want them, you know? Make your choice. And I chose Cav. The game does not give any suggestions in that direction. So I'm going with what my heart tells me. We'll see. Now, the French Cav in this period didn't really learn the lessons of Adolphus. And they're still kind of relying on firepower, which is also kind of weird. In fact, most of the Cav in the period, now once you get to Marlborough, you start seeing Cav starting to charge again. And it's kind of funny. It's like, didn't you guys learn when Gustavus, like, kicked ass? That he was using, you know, charges? Well, we'll see. All right. I think that's it for tonight. Oh, boy. So here it is. I guess very early Monday morning. I've got a bit of a break from raid. I've been sleeping all day Saturday, of course, but Sunday as well. I slept quite a bit and played a lot of raid as well. And every time I think about coming up to play, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should do that. And I come up with some excuse not to. Well, I'm out of excuses. I got about an hour and a half. I figure that probably is enough to get me through a turn. The first turn. The first turn of a game is always rough. This is, you know, a system that's very, very different. So I've got a lot of trepidation about, you know, playing. I always do. There's no sequence of play on a player's aid that I'm aware of. It's not very big, but I'm going to have to flip to the front of the rule book until I get used to things. But the first thing is the artillery phase. And neither player is going to unlimber, move, or limber. So we go to fire, and that'll be the person with the most artillery units. Now, I got to count them. But they're all face up. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Allies, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got to be more. 6, 7 for the French. Now, I'm a little iffy about the lighting here. I put it closer to the map, but it's kind of annoying me by being that close. That means the French are going to fire first, and I think what I want to do is something akin to counter battery fire. So I'm going to open up here, and I just, you know, shoot one gun. So we look over here at the artillery combat results table, and there's no modifiers. It's just range, and that's it. Okay, easy enough. So 3 hexes away. I need an 8 or a 9 for the best results. I get a 0, that's a miss. I flip my artillery over. All right, that's pretty easy. We'll do something similar with the Allied side, but we obviously don't want to fire this one if we're doing counter battery fire. So let's look for a gun. We got a gun here, but that's not it. Oh, I've got another one here. I think I was one short on the Allied points. But these guys aren't very effective as counter battery, but this one is at a range of 2. We'll fire that over here. And this is real exciting, I'm sure. We get a 4, which is going to be our first marker, which will be an artillery hit. That was over on this hex. I'm going to put that on top because it kind of helps. Now, a hit means that it's going to increase movement in that hex. Doesn't really make much difference. Like, I might want to fire right in front of me where the French are going to move. You don't know. I feel like reducing their guns is of some use, and that's going to be a -2 to the die roll on that gun. So it is kind of helpful. I'll come back after I've fired all the guns. I kind of lied. I've done a few fires, and you can see we got some hits. This unit hasn't fired yet, so I should probably mark it that way, just to remember that I've got a gun under there. But we had an effective here. Now that's going to be, I know I've gone over this. Can't leave, -2 combat value, may not initiate combat, no rally recovery, may not fire. It doesn't do any actual hits, but it makes that hex much, much uglier to be in. But now, as I intimated as might be a good idea, I'm going to lay down fire in front of my line to reduce the impact that French units might have if they move into a hex. So this gun is going to fire here, as an example, just to strengthen my defensive position. And that's only a 1 hex shot. but I don't get much out of that. But that means that's a less effective place to attack from. So kind of, again, a different thinking than you would normally have. You'd normally lay down fire on enemy units, but it doesn't do much to enemy units. If I hit, say, this hex, I just reduce his movement by 1. Whereas if I hit where he's likely to want to go, I end up penalizing his attack capability. Here are the net results. We got, I guess, a couple of places where the French don't particularly want to go, but I don't know if it's going to inhibit their movement. We got a couple of hits, and including an effective one on the town itself, which I see as particularly advantageous. I'm a little worried because units under fired artillery, that artillery can be destroyed very easily. The artillery doesn't roll under the unit. I have to activate the unit. I have to activate either the artillery and hide it under the unit, which that's not going to do me any good whatsoever. The artillery maybe just gets one shot, but at least it gets one, you know. Or I have to move the units, activate the units so that they move in front of the artillery and defend it. I'm not sure how much value that is either, in the sense that, like, well, I'm really worried about the ineffectual nature of the artillery here, that it really isn't going to mean a hell of a lot in the battle as a whole. And that's because the infantry is going to move up in front of the artillery almost inevitably. And, you know, the French are going to move their units in front of the artillery and thereby screen it. The Allied units, again, the artillery is not safe up there at the front, and it's going to end up getting its guns covered. We're not seeing anything like the kinds of lines of fire that you would see either in 30 Years' War period or in the later Napoleonic period. We've got such a dense frontage that, you know, I mean, we may see. The French may leave some artillery available to soften up the Allied line. The next thing is wing activation. We look at the army commanders, and we got a 2 and a 1. So Luxembourg has the highest army command rating, and he's going to be allowed to go first. He activates a wing, and that wing commander is allowed to move to a different location or on top of a unit. Attempt to commit or transfer a single brigade. I don't see any of that happening. And when he completes his activation, he's flipped to finished, and we keep alternating. Do I want to commit my wing commanders so that they give units better combat value, basically? Is it combat value? Or is it just morale? I don't remember. Leaders in combat, stacked in combat. Yeah, they increased their combat value by 1. That sounds particularly advantageous. I don't really need the leaders to do command stuff right now. So I may start committing commanders as I go. Let's take a look. Do I have any zeros? Because if I do, those will be, yes, I do. So I'm going to fire him off first and just say he's finished, because there's nothing for him to do, right? Orders happens when the actual brigades operate, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Right? It's not there. Yeah, it's here. Yeah. So there's absolutely no harm to that. I looked through the Allied commanders, and likewise, this guy isn't going to do anything. But now I go to the next, and We'll look here. What do I have on the frontage? I have 3 commanders, Billard, Reeb, and Grader. Grader's here, Reeb is here, and Bilal goes to here. I think I want to commit to that central attack, so I'm going to move him over to Bilal and put him like this to indicate that. And I'm going to make the same kind of decision. Again, it's alternating, just like the artillery was, for everyone. And I think in general, I want to attach leaders to anything. Now, when you activate a wing, you can move the army commander. The army commander may be a harder choice to actually commit to a force, because he can benefit any wing by moving to it and can benefit it in command activities and whatnot. This is another factor. Wait, before I do that, let's take a look at the command and movement tables, because if I want to commit a brigade, I need to roll, I'm sorry, not commit, wrong thing. If I want to change orders, how do I do that? All right, I'll be back. There was a table for this, I just wasn't seeing it. Yeah, so if I'm in the front and I want to go to a charge, no, if I want to go from march, which is what everybody's in, to charge, I need a 4. Now, this is important to this decision on moving this guy, because I believe the leadership modifier doesn't count if I'm with the unit, if I'm with a unit, except for that unit. So let's take a look at the order change. Let's look at leaders. General command is on the wing or line but not stacked. Direct command is when they're stacked with the brigade. Only a leader with a leadership martyr. Supposedly there's a rule that's missing, and this may be it. When in direct command, the leader only modifies a brigade order change attempt for the brigade with which the leader is stacked. Yeah, this is an interesting question. Do I want to hit with all my force at once, or do I want to have a higher firepower with stuff? I think actually I like the idea of the higher firepower, so I'm going to go with that. I got to consider now with the Allied side, they probably don't want to change orders right now. So I think I'm going to commit with all of them. I'm not absolutely certain I'm going to commit with all of the French forces, because in some cases I may want to make a broader attack. Here I feel like I want the Belal units, I want to hit this Neerwinden area and try to break right at their strength. Among other things, that gives me a nice defensive location if I can take one of the village locations. It gives me a little bit of strength beyond what I want. It's not like just running against the breastworks, which I also like the idea of, but that's because I'm insane. But yeah, when I'm looking at like, there's an artillery hit here, maybe I don't want to commit those troops to advancing. So maybe I'm a little less inclined in that direction. So I think the Belal units make sense to move forward. All right. Plus, I would be perhaps screening my guns. I have no guns here. Okay, never mind that. Never mind. So one thing I want to point out when I talked about the guns, you know, it's one place where counters versus minis, the counters really suffer. And I think it's why, you know, NATO symbology and everything is used. Now, I prefer this kind of appearance, but I am finding it kind of difficult to some extent to tell what I have where. So, for example, okay, the artillery is marked fired, but everything kind of looks a little bit the same from any kind of distance in a way that it wouldn't with a mini setup. And, you know, unfortunately for me, though, there's no way I have the time or the money, for that matter, to invest in a whole bunch, you know, in minis from various different periods. So, you know, maybe I could build a minis army for one period and focus on that. But there's no one period I'm all that into, right? I mean, I love basically everything from the American Civil War back, all that gunpowder stuff, the ancients and all that. And, you know, it's just, it's a fortune to build a minis army. And then there's all the time and painting and everything along those lines, where it's like you really have to kind of devote yourself to maybe 1 or 2 eras at most. And that's, you know, if you're doing something like Napoleonics, yeah, one or two eras. Let's say you're doing Napoleonics and you want to cover all the different armies of that period. Yeah, you're already investing a huge amount, right? So I don't even know if you can even really do that. Like, American Civil War is easy, right? You can do most of the battles, but you can't do most of the Napoleonic battles without putting a huge investment in. And even then, you're probably leaving out some important things like, you know, the Austro-Turkish battles and the Russo-Turkish battles. You probably have the, you know, it's just, do you want to invest to get a bunch of Turks? I guess you could go kind of halfway and use semi-minis, kind of like the way some of the board game mini sets work with and stuff, where it's not the same kind of, you know, you're like, oh, okay, I got horses here, you know, and I guess you could do something along those lines and get something that's a little bit stronger visually than this. But I want to go whole hog if I'm going minis, and I just never was able to make that decision. And I'm delaying getting to the play, am I not? So like I said, no transfers. Everything's, you know, all set up, ready to go. The leaders, that's interesting. He's a 1 on one side and a 0 on the other. I wonder which he's supposed to be. All right. First of all, he's also an army commander on the other side. This sounds to me like a counter error. We have a Maximilian here who's a wing commander on the other side and an army commander on one side. So this is annoying. Obviously, it's a counter fuck up, and now GMT charges you if you want replacement counters. It's not a bad price, you know, but still, it's a little annoying when they fuck up. So I guess I'm just going to correct the counter, because obviously the wing commander is supposed to be a 1. I don't know if GMT has gotten worse. It kind of feels like they have, not just in terms of charging now for these, but also in terms of the care of catching the errors. I don't know, Border Reavers had a bunch that they had, basically, I fear that whoever's looking at the counter sheets to make sure that they're right before they send them out for printing or whatever, is not as capable as they once were. I don't know if that's, whose job that is. I'm going to guess developer. And it feels like that quality level has decreased at just the time when they're saying, yeah, we can't support our products as well as we were doing 10 years ago. Anyway, we got all those set up. That means we go to the next step, which I believe is actually operating the brigades. All brigades under charge order must go, then under march, and finally dress ranks. Well, everything's under march. There are more French than there are Allied, so I'm just going to say a French unit gets to go first. And I'm going low on battery, so I think I'm going to swap out here. Right, so, wow, this didn't charge fully. Away we go. I'm going to start at the extreme right flank on the front with Kalis here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to change from march to charge. I need a 4. I get a -1 to the die roll because I'm using cav. And my leadership modifiers do not count. I don't have my army commander in this sector. I did choose not to put this wing commander in charge of an individual unit with the idea that I want to be able to succeed with both charges there. I figure this guy gives enough advantage. Okay. So we're looking at like a 5. We get a 4. So now we're under charge orders. We look for a charge counter and find one. Put that here. Now this has a finished marker on it. I'm going to flip it over now just to make life easier. And now what? Yeah. Okay. Now we've got charge priorities here, which, let's see what we got here. That's asphalt. So we got 4 units. I'm going to charge here first. Okay. My movement rate is 8. So I move 2. We're going to remember that somehow. Okay. It shouldn't be too hard at this point. I'm not sure if I need to do it. Okay. Infantry and cav units under charge must attack units of the same type. I'm just looking at what my order is here, because I don't know if I do the battle right now. Charging is movement, so movement is expended. I've done some movement. I'm just not sure because I've got these additional attacks. All right. Do I do all attacks at once? I've got to look this up. Do I do all attacks at once with that brigade, or, and I think that's the case, or do I move and then attack in sequence? But I think I move everything and then do the attacks. And indeed, that's the case. Movement, combat, morale check, mark brigade is finished. Okay, so we will be hitting, just checking this again, it is, oh, this is a different cav unit. Yeah, I got all cav up front. Yeah. Not thrilled about that, but, so all my cav is moving forward. Now it's time to do combat, and this battery is already dead, basically. Deader than the last one was. Now we look at the cav versus cav combat, and we'll start from the far right. We don't look good. We're a 2 strength. Uh-oh. And we don't have a leader involved here. The Brits don't either. This is not optimal. But whatever, it's what we chose. Okay. We have a momentum possibility though. We are French early. 97. I'm assuming, yeah, 93. Okay. So I'm assuming we're French early. The French should be better earlier. Yeah. The target was 1, 2, 3 hexes away, so we get a +2 to our strength for the charge. Uh-oh, nope. We get a +1 because we're dragoons. So we're a 3 to a 4, which means we're at a -1, which is, again, not optimal, but we roll a die, and that may be a bad roll. We got an R2A1. Oh no, that's not bad. Is that? I think actually the attacker takes the retreat, which is not good. Yeah, so the results are attacker defender, which means this is not particularly advantageous, and we got there's no die roll modifiers. We get a retreat 2, and they get an A1. Now, we just attacked, so we're disordered. This advances. I don't think it's disordered. A1, A2, A3 combat results on the cavalry combat tables require the attacking... See, this is weird. Because this would be the attacker, the defender. But it doesn't seem to apply that way. Yeah, only attacking cavalry is disordered. I may be misreading this. Like, I'm thinking that R2A1 should mean attacker result, defender result, but I'm not absolutely certain that that's the case. Results are not really explained here. What is said is the A1, A2, A3 combat results on the cav tables require attacking cavalry units to advance that number of hexes. These advances are mandatory, which seems to me to say that the R2 is for the defender, but I'm going to have to look, and I'm beginning to start to question these rules the way that many other people have. When I read through it, it all made sense, but now looking at the chart, I'm like, well, if I follow that standard procedure that most games have, results to the attacker, results to the defender, well, an A1 on the defender saying the attacker must advance doesn't really work, and I don't think it's what's intended. So I'm going to look a little bit, but I'm beginning to see the point behind these rules maybe being significantly lacking. What I did was I looked back at the infantry rules to see if they had something to help convince me here. Like, there's nowhere here where it says the results are applied based on the player. But if you look at the infantry versus infantry, they have singular effects. So it's a different type of chart. And to me, it feels like Cav would retreat in, attacking Cav that's disadvantaged might well be bounced off. And so this feels like the reasonable result, but the rules don't support this. What the rules would say, I think, is there's a retreat which is not really applied as to who it goes to, but the A is automatically to the attacker. I just don't buy that. I'm going to force the English to advance, even though I'm not sure they should have to, using common sense. Perhaps they would, in the sense that they have to charge forward to engage. But again, yeah, there's... And bets that, unlike Won by the Sword in that era, that there's no replacement rule book, regardless of how bad rule books get nowadays for GMT. Just gambling on that. All right, let's do the next one. Same situation at a -1. Guess we want to roll low 5. We get a retreat 1, and the D gets a disordered, or the defender gets a disordered. Any restrictions on retreat? Because I might actually be okay retreating. Like, I might be better off retreating to here, both to preserve my lines, but also because that would force an attack without momentum. So, we got any rules on retreating? We got rules on advances. We do not have rules on retreating. I think I am allowed to retreat directly back, and I'd rather do that for the reasons that I outlined. Third attack, also these are dismounted. How about that? Wonder why I have these dismounted. Interesting. Okay. All right. So we are again at -1. And here we get a nasty old 9, which is a retreat to A1. Keep the unit together, I guess. This has to advance. It's breaking up its formation. And I was hitting here. There's no cav here. Did these fire? I don't think they did. Let me roll a fire for right next to them. The hex that wasn't used. And just because, again, I'm having my issues in seeing stuff. Okay. And here I'm charging infantry, which has one effect and one effect only, which is I believe I force the infantry to fire its first fire. I'm not able to do the other kind of attack anyway. So this is now got a hit on it, first hit of the game. And this is disordered. Does it retreat? Must retreat 1 hex. Again, I want to cover that cav unit that way. Now, my formation has become no longer connected, which is going to cause issues. The charge order can stay for these, but this guy gets, like, I think a move order, but yeah, I think a move order to try to get closer to the rest of his unit. But that doesn't happen right now. That's the first action. I'm going to put a couple dice over on the Allied side and say, you know what, I'm going to take a break here. Yeah, I know I'm a wuss, but I am kind of fatigued just having worked through this much of it. It will get more comfortable. It's just the nature of games for me. It takes me a while to kind of get into the flow enough, even though it's mainly that I'm exhausted more than like that I feel like I need to get away from the game or anything. I'm just exhausted from having played, even if I wasn't doing rules lookups and whatnot. I think I would be pretty close to exhausted at this point. I would have played another turn, another brigade, but I want to savor things and not make myself miserable. So, despite an attempt to sleep, it's dawn now, past dawn, and I'll try to get a little bit more in. So now we're over on the Allied side. They get to pick one of their units. And, you know, looking at the situation, I don't want to dislodge anything on my line. Yeah, maybe I'd be willing to do something with reserves, but why bother when something's already been opened up and I have the English force here that I can command. Now, it's got a bit of a problem, which is that they've become separated and are no longer a linear formation, which means that I do not follow brigade integrity any longer. So let's look for this. There we go. If no units of a brigade are adjacent when it's activated, the brigade changes to dress ranks. If some units are not adjacent, those isolated units must move to become adjacent during the activation and are treated as if they're under a march order. So this is a little weird. Because I've basically got two sections of the brigade, both of which include units that are adjacent. So I think I'm still under march orders with that brigade. Now, given that, I probably want to try to brush aside the French cav and see what I can do about it. Which means I have a 0 commander here. I'm going to activate the English cavalry brigade. It's currently in march orders, and I want to get it to charge orders. So it's a 4. It's cav, so that's -1, goes to a 5. Because 4 minus 1 is 5, right? It's -1 to the die roll. And that sounds good. I do not get that. So it stays in its march order, and now I'm not really allowed to attack. But when I'm under march orders, I am allowed, if I recall correctly, to attack units that I'm adjacent to at the beginning of the movement. And I'll also try to bring these guys into better alignment. I'm trying to see what the situation is there. So there's nothing special listed there under march order, but there is under combat. I don't know if there's specifics for cavalry. Cavalry unit that begins its activation on its front side, not under charge, and already adjacent to an enemy cav unit that is under charge, may attack voluntarily. So I'd be allowed to attack here. Well, this is actually an infantry unit attacking nothing. No. I'd be able to attack here and here. So what I'm going to do to reflect that is I'm going to put these here. Ah, fuck. I think this was back here. I'm going to put these here to remind me that I have the capability to attack with these. I do not have the capability to attack with anything that's further back, but I think I'm going to make these attacks, so that's fine. I am not allowed to recover. Dressing ranks would allow me to recover with some of these units. I'm not allowed to do that. For movement, though, I can kind of shift units to the back. I think I'll leave these. These are dragoons that are dismounted for some reason. But these 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. I'm afraid of getting in the way of units that might have to retreat. Although if I have to retreat, that's not necessarily that terrible, because that'll probably result in a disorder result. Let's move this up. But I'll leave it like that. And now we're going to handle these attacks. So I've got a 4 to a 1 at this point. That gives me a +3. I will not get any momentum advantage on this. And by the way, one thing I was thinking about while I was considering whether or not to come up here and play was, it kind of exhausted me doing just a few little units. Now consider how big the line is. Just how many units would be involved if it was that more complex kind of combat that was handled in musket and pike. And yeah, I kind of understand. Like just this one map battle, right? There's a lot of fucking shit on the board. It would be an incredibly intensive monster to play out. Maybe kind of like Wellington's victory. Okay. So what did I say? I was running, well, let's do this one first instead. I was running at +3. And I get a 3-3. Okay. Now I get an A2, which is a 2-point advance, and an E. E is going to eliminate the unit. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm definitely showing a lot here that I don't normally do, which is going to put a routed marker here. That's going to cause this unit, this is a loss. I'm keeping that there to remind me I have to make a morale check. Okay, so I got an A2 with a dagger. Dagger means it can attack again. I don't know what the difference between these two different markings are. Oh, no momentum in this case, I guess. Okay, which is fine. These guys have to retreat. And I believe they're going to retreat through an enemy unit, which might cause a rout. Because I'm so densely packed there. So, and yes, we're looking at a lot here. Okay. What happens when a routed unit retreats? Because it's E, routed, marker retreats 2 hexes. It's not going to get hit with a unable to retreat result. Instead, it's going to go through it. Routed units will move through friendly units, creating casualties for infantry or flipping cav to disordered. This is already disordered. It's not going to rout the cav to do so. So we'll just cut through there. And we will follow up, and I think we'll continue our charge without momentum. Does this happen immediately? I think so. I'm not sure. Here it says a momentum bonus applies if the appropriate number. That's not the case. Again, a place where I think the rules actually, yeah, maybe a little bit more wordiness would be acceptable. On the other hand, maybe you can figure out when you see the difference between the two. I don't know which way to go with that. I found these rules very refreshing to read because of how light they read. On the other hand, and GMT rules generally, and most modern game rules these days that are looking at new types of systems and everything, are trying to nail everything down and get everything so clear to you. And yes, sometimes when they don't, there's an issue. So like I misinterpreted a minute of iron rule when I played the first game of it that later got nailed down to mean something different. But on the other hand, I kind of feel like it's easier to approach games when they're easier to read. I don't know. Anyway. So we're going to hit again at +3 once more. No momentum bonus. This time we get a 4, which is an A2 DR2. DR2 is going to be a disordered and a retreat, but it's already disordered, so another unit routes. And we got an A2. Now, I wasn't able to advance 2 last time. Yeah, that's not the right thing. But that's okay. So this one, 1, 2, comes back here. And now this unit has to advance, and this is there. And charge marker is gone. Yeah. But not there, it's over here. Got to get things in the right place. Okay, so that battle's done. This unit's disordered now for its fight. And now we hit here, and again it's at +3. And yeah, we've become really separated from the other units. And here we get a 6, which is going to be an A1 DR2. It's again going to be a rout. And the French are just collapsing here. Send them, I don't know. I'll send them this way. It looks like there's room that way. And I only get an A1. That sends me to here. Okay. Now, the English command is essentially done, but we have to do a morale check. And we go to the morale rules. And the brigade morale is on the brigade marker. The modified morale is that minus the number of units eliminated. It was a 4. I'm sorry. I gotta check. So number of units in the brigade is the first. The morale is the second. So it was a 6 minus 3 gives it a 3. And we're going to stack these under here to indicate the deaths for any further morale checks. And I guess we need a 3 or less in order to succeed. Modified by a leader if in direct command. We get an 8. That routes the entirety of Kalis. Now there should only be one remaining Kalis unit, which is right here. So that also will route. And now I can bag that unit. It's just gone. That was particularly ineffectual for the French attack. The brigade is destroyed. This has been hit as well. And yeah, that does not look good. Now I get to choose another French brigade to move and what to do. Wow. So if we look at the command table, I am allowed to go into a charge formation out of the support wing and try maybe to push ahead here, but there's all those routed units in my way. That's no fun. I can't promote this. The movement that happened on there, that's past. I can't turn this into a frontline unit at this point. I probably will want to very shortly. Which means, do I want to launch an attack from these guys? Somewhat better French units to attack coming through, and I think I can do that. So I'm going to take a shot at that. So this is the Nassau cavalry here, and I'm going to try to put that into a charge formation. That needs a 1 or a 2. It would be charged from cav from march, so that goes up to a 3. And no leadership modifiers. Let's try. We failed, so we're still in march. There's not much I can do in march there. So I'm going to flip Nassau over, and that brings the turn back to the Allies. I think we're getting kind of a feel, at least, how a cav battle works. Not pleasant. Now the Brits, the Allies probably want to waste time at this point. So what they're going to do, I'm allowed, anything that's in a charge order would have had to go first, but everything starts in march order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger these guys. I don't think I want to do much with them. So I'm just going to, they're infantry? Oh, the Spaniards are infantry. The Danes are cav. Oh no, the Danes are infantry too. Why are these not infantry? Fuck. I think I fucked everything up. I think I fucked everything up. Ah, bother. All right. So, how can I tell infantry from cavalry? I mean, I'm really having a hard time here. I mean, these have M's on them, so they're definitely cav. You can see these come in little squares, so they look different. But this shit looks like this shit. I can tell by what's on the back. All right. Well, what's going to happen here is I'm going to set up again. And I guess pull my units back and figure out what's going on. Turns out, no, this is English cavalry. The fuck? Well, this isn't part of the English. This is part of the First Guards. What the hell is this doing there? They made a fucking mess out of these counters. That's what's going on. This is part of the English cavalry, and I got to tell you, I can't tell infantry from cav. I really can't. This was indeed cavalry, but they made such a shit mess out of the counters that this Dutch garde du corps, same, it's been changed to garde du vol. Somebody did not have the right eyes on this. I'm not sure this is even playable, the way the counters are. Like, I don't know how many are fucking messed up, but I had 2 over there that were messed up. This one's fucking messed up. So this, the back of this one, I bet is reversed with that one. Yep. Thanks, GMT. GMT is getting to the level at this point. With the last couple games that I've seen, Border Reavers had this problem. I'm trying to think what else. The Plantagenets one. Plantagenet. Had a couple of counters fucked up on it, if I recall correctly. This one apparently has several. This is a level of error that used to be very rare for GMT. Now that they're no longer providing free resources, replacements, at the same time, it seems that their quality control has gone to shit. I don't know, if this game is playable with the counter set that's there. I mean, they fucked it completely, as far as I can tell. Now, how many counters are screwed up? I don't know. Let's take another random. This one looks okay. Let's look at this one. This one looks okay. The names are close on these, but the names being close doesn't really make a lot of sense. I would expect almost 100% fucked up, where the counter sheets got printed, just absolutely wrong. I wouldn't expect this kind of very simple little screw-ups that are ones that look like it was an eyeballing mistake, and I don't even know how this could have happened. I'm trying to imagine, the one set, they're the same counter, right? I would kind of understand if I saw the similar kind of issue happening between a mounted and an unmounted dragoon. But this is I'm having a really hard time grasping what could cause the kind of problem that we're seeing here. But anyway, it's clear that I can't trust the counters to say what they should. I'll try to handle this one. Is the strength right at least? Yeah, the strength is right. It's turned into an infantry unit, a different unit. And it's all, I don't know how this kind of fuck up could happen. Yeah, I'm very disappointed at this point. Where I'll continue to try to play. I think I've got to swap batteries, but I was gonna do. What was I gonna do? I was gonna do this. I've got the Spanish infantry and the the Danish cav. I'm going to fire off, I guess, the Spanish infantry. And I'm allowed to move that forward a little bit. And that won't hurt. I'm not going to try to make any changes there. That'll go to the French and I'll swap batteries. Okay, the French have an interesting opportunity here, which is there's some disordered cav and some damaged infantry in the front that I can try to hit with my asphalt up brigade here. But in order to do so, I need to get my command off. So this is going to be front March 4. No bonus for cav on this case. So here we go. We get a charge. Oh, these are dragoons. But they're dragoons as infantry? No, they're mounted. Huh. I thought I had infantry up there. Again, I'm having a really hard time telling the difference. And if we look, yeah, the infantry's all in line together. Oh, that's the big difference, I guess. Except, oh no, the Danes are cav. Okay. I should get an advantage off of these guys. So, since I've got them under charge, I'll do one. Wait. Let's check him. He may be problematic because basically what I'm looking at here is the charge zone, right? So my charge zone does not include this hex. And if I look, see, I may not have wanted to activate these guys. I thought they were infantry. That's the problem. But again, it's very hard for me to distinguish. I know. This looks very different from this. Trust me, I can tell that. But then I'm left with, is this cav? Levi's? Is he cav? If Levi's isn't cav, I don't understand what's going on, vision-wise. Or Levis. He must be because I've got them clumped together like this. I can't find, oh, Rodenberg. Rodenberg is indeed cav. Okay, good. Yeah, if I've got things deployed in line, they're probably infantry. They're probably infantry, and that's part of my confusion here, is these guys are cav that I've got in line here. I don't think I can swing into play against these, but I also, cav versus infantry, I'm allowed to steal their first fire. So if I take this guy first, I can move him up 2, steal the first fire of this, and then I fall back 1, and I believe I'm disordered with that. Right? Attack an infantry unit with the attack is declared, the initial volley is declared, the cav unit is disordered and must retreat a hex. Yeah. So I can break up his units in this way. I go into this artillery hit. That cost me an extra movement point, but it doesn't really impact me. Now I've hit some artillery, and I believe I just destroy the artillery. Let's take a look at that. Infantry and cav. See, that's artillery alone in a hex. But I thought that happens when they're stacked on top. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing that worded this way. If the artillery unit is on top, it is automatically removed from play if the hex is attacked. Okay, so I get to attack both. I get to destroy the artillery, and then I get to do this. And these fall back. And then this asphalt unit comes here, no effect, comes here. This must hit the cav. Except that's got a D on it. That's dismounted infantry. Uh-oh. So I am hitting cav versus infantry. Attacking infantry with at least a casualty, and the attack must be from the flank or rear. I'm not allowed to attack with this unit into there. Which means, since I have no eligible targets here, I am allowed to turn one and strike into here. And that'll be a cav attack. I think I have a momentum of 1. I don't think I can count the turning there. So I am hitting with a mounted 2 against what should be a 4 strength cav, I think. I don't know, it's reduced in strength here as well. So I guess it is indeed a 3 strength cav. So I'm at -1 on my attack. These do not have a leader on them. I have a momentum. The target was at 2 hexes. That gives me +1. So now I'm at 0. I'm hitting in the flank, which will give me another 1. So I'm at a total of +1. It gives a -1 to the defender. So I'm a total of +1 cav versus cav. And we roll a 0, which is a very good result. We get an A2 with a charge. This is routed. And this is part of the English brigade here, which is going to have to make a morale check now. This guy gets a 2. I can't hit the dismounted. I must advance 2. I can pivot and turn. I'm allowed to hit that routed unit. I would rather not. So my unit disorders. And I think that's the finish of Asphalt, who is now in charge. Kalis, why are you still on the map? He should be removed. Right? Kalis is the unit that got destroyed. What did I throw in the bag? Oh, Kalis himself is here. That's okay. Gotcha. I gotta turn off the camera so I have enough hands to do this. Now, even though it's a French turn that was used, we make a check on the English who took a hit here. However, I think that they're automatically okay, because they had a morale of 10 and have only lost 1 unit. I can't roll higher than a 9. And that's going to put things back on the Brits. Again, I don't want to activate anything that causes issues. My first fire being gone, what would the Danish infantry moving forward do to that cav? Well, infantry versus cav forces the cav to retreat. Now this is all misworded. This rule has been corrected in some way. The initial volley would be expended and disorder the cav. Oh, okay, so the first thing is the cav is going to incur a retreat result. If it was an initial fire, I would get the initial fire to disorder the cav before it has to retreat. As it stands, the cav is going to have to retreat. It is able to do so. That's not really an issue. So there's not a lot that these can do to that cav. They can just chase it off, is basically what it comes down to. Do I want to activate them and chase that cav a little bit? I don't know. I think what I want to try, addressing ranks won't help. I can't reload that first fire. So there's really not much of anything that I can do with that. I'm going to go for these guys back here. And I'm just going to leave them alone. And that brings it back to the French. We haven't seen an infantry fight yet, but I think we've seen quite a bit of kind of what's going on in the game. And I'm going to call this video here and load this up as the A portion of the first turn, just so you can see kind of some of the struggles, but also how it operates. The biggest takeaway, though, so far is, boy, GMT's quality is going downhill. Like, I've got mixed feelings on the rules. But when it comes to you fucked up the counters and you didn't get them straight, and I mean the rules screw-ups, it sounds like they were written differently and like a different version of the rules got sent out to the printer, one that wasn't completely okayed and everything. So whatever the quality control is going on at GMT, it is really going downhill. You know, I looked at Compass, right, which has gotten a bad name, but for a couple of years there, I was seeing stuff that I liked that seemed to be pretty tight. You know, not too many big problems other than their graphic designer who has this horrible, like, he just, whoever their graphic design people is over at Compass has this capability of like making any game hard to see and comprehend what's going on. The same way as I'm having with these, but okay. But they would do it with like, use weird fonts for the numbers, use colors where you can't distinguish one from the other, like black on dark blue and stuff like that, where it's just like there was no thought to the graphic design side of things, or what thought was put into it was bad thoughts. Like, what would look cool, like in God Kings, as opposed to, is this actually playable this way? Should I be using hieroglyphics on it because that's what would be used? I mean, come on. Their games have started to take a shift back south again, as if like the quality control they put into play has just been relaxed. Like they got their nose hurt a couple of times and were more careful, and now they're not again. But GMT has always been okay, like, and at their best, they were top of the game because the gamers stopped, once they came under MMP, they stopped being as impressive. But yeah, to me now, GMT is like falling down to Compass level. And, you know, sort of by default, I think. At least the gamer stuff under the MMP banner is doing better. But yeah, I'm really, looks to me like the whole hobby is like taking a plunge downward for whatever reasons, you know. Maybe sales aren't doing as well, whatever. Maybe the people willing to do the work, their eyes are going bad like mine are, but things aren't looking up.